Hey guys, Sean here. So it's been a while since I've posted anything about a topic, so I figured I should maybe start doing some rambling again and figure out what my character's all about or something. So it's been really awesome researching stuff for Atomic. Just researching the atomic bomb and what effects that it's had on the world. Researching the characters that I'm playing between Edward Teller and General Leslie Groves, and trying to incorporate real aspects of them into the space of the show. Edward Teller is an incredibly interesting person. Just a couple of really quick fun facts about him. He had trouble speaking when he was little, similar to Einstein. Did not vocalize for a while. And since he didn't, he became fascinated with numbers and made up this game where he would try to guess how many minutes were in a year, how many seconds there were in a year, how many hours there were in a 90-day period. He would and he knew all, there are 60 seconds in a minute, there are 60 minutes in an hour, and that's all he knew. And so he would just go from that, and he got incredibly good with numbers. He was born in Hungary in 1908, so he didn't really have a good conscious understanding of World War I. And he didn't really, if I'm read his memoir correctly, he didn't really come in contact with a lot of anti-Semitism until after the fall of the mostly Jewish communist government in Hungary. He never really cared for politics until after the start of the European part of World War II, in the late 1930s, and one of the really interesting things, he went to several different universities before he actually settled on one, and one of the really interesting things is when he left his hometown, he was born in Budapest, Hungary. He was smart. He was an intelligent guy. Then he goes and he starts talking and hanging out with these physicists and these chemists, and he's like, I feel really dumb now. And I feel like he had this sense of inferiority at times that colored most of the latter half of his life. He enjoyed mountain climbing. Oh, he loved it. It was one of his absolute favorite pastimes. And he was really bummed. He was out walking. I can't remember what city it was in, but he had just got off the tram, and he tripped, and the tram ran over him. And he's like, okay, well, that's weird. He tried to get up, and then his body screamed in pain. The tram had severed one of his feet. Not even the full leg, just one of the feet. So he was really bummed and sad for a while, because he's like, I'm never going to be able to mountain climb again. And like I said, this is something he really loved to do. But fortunately, I guess he was in Germany. The German prosthetic that he was using was fabulous and lasted him until his death. He never had to get a new prosthetic ever, and he was incredibly thankful for that. But I mention that because when he moved to Los Alamos in 1943 with his wife and his young son and all of the other scientists, he loved the location because there were mountains to climb everywhere. He was so happy about that. And I get the sense from reading his memoir and a lot of other things that I read, that the scientists really did enjoy being in the area of Los Alamos as they were creating this super weapon. They didn't dislike their location They disliked a lot of the secrecy. They disliked a lot of the fencing. It was basically like a concentration camp or a prison, minus a lot of the death from the concentration camp, where there was barbed wire and fences, and there are pictures of Teller's wife and his son Paul walking by one of the barbed wire fences. And he was one of the people who, just kind of long story short, the scientists complained a lot about the lack of being able to talk to each other. This group can't talk to this group, and this group can't talk to this group, because this project was utmost secrecy. Like, it had to be 100% secret. And he was one of the people who helped argue successfully, and Oppenheimer was the one who really convinced General Groves this was the best idea for the project, to make the laboratories and the one building where all of this science was happening, where all the process was going. The totally open communication. If you're in that building, you can talk about the project, no matter who you were with, no matter where you're at. There was no secret part of the project in the building, which really helped kind of speed up the process of creating this bomb. I'm trying. And then after the war, this is something that's really, really cool, and actually I think helps me figure out Teller a lot better. He was one of the only people pushing for the creation of the hydrogen bomb, because why not? But he was also pushing for nuclear power, and he was the first head of director of like the Atomic Energy Commission, I think, is what it's called. And this group is responsible for a lot of the safety regulations that we have now for nuclear power plants. And their goal, his stated goal, was not to react to a nuclear meltdown. He had witnessed firsthand the destructive nature of radioactivity, not only in terms of like the bomb going off at Trinity that he watched, which reminds me of a really fun story about him, but taking the data that they had gotten from Hiroshima and Nagasaki and synthesizing that. And he's like, we cannot allow, we cannot react to, we need to prevent. We need to make sure these things don't happen. And part of what they would do is they would look at plans and they would say, okay, where are the problems? How can we make this plan fail so that we know how to prevent failure from happening? It's like they're like the precursor to the white hat hackers that we have now. The guys who create systems and then hack them just to see what the weaknesses are. Now, they didn't do this, live with an actual nuclear reactor. They did it based on, speculation and mathematical equations and, the things that physicists do that I had only vaguely now informed on. So Trinity. Back to that. This was a really interesting little tidbit that he wrote in his memoir. He said they went to the site to watch it happen, and it was 20 miles away is where they were watching. They're on this mesa or plateau, right above, 20 miles away from the actual test site. And he brought some sunscreen lotion, and he brought a set of sunglasses and a welder's mask. He's like, this is gonna be bright. I gotta be prepared. And people were making fun of him because he brought the sunscreen, but incredibly bright light that emits heat, probably gonna burn you. And so the test happens at 5:30, and he watches it, and he sees it, and he sees like these little three little pinpricks of light, and he's like, is that all? So he just slightly lifts the welder's mask, and he said it was like seeing day for the first time. There was so much light happening. And after that, this is how slow, I guess, the shockwave moved. after that happened, that's when they felt it. That's when they heard it. And he remembers, I think he was one of the ones who said he was thrown down from where he was sitting. But he loved it. He was so into this project. It's just his passion and his fervor for this project was it's very exciting to read it. And he was responsible. He was the guy that Oppenheimer put in charge of recruiting people to the project. He went and he talked to people, and he's like, I think you should do this project. I can't tell you what it is, but we'll go to New Mexico. It's sunny. There's a little lake. It'll be perfect. Another funny story, the little lake's actually a little pond. And just a really, really very complex and complicated guy, just in all senses. What else is there that's kind of like helping me create this character? There's so much there. For me, this is one of the most important moments. Very early on, he and Oppenheimer are out walking up a mountain, as it were, and they have a conversation. And Teller falls at some point, and Oppenheimer comes and helps him up, and he said something along the lines of, at some point, we will have to oppose the government. Oppenheimer says this. And Teller responded, again, I don't have the exact quotes. Teller responded along the lines of, I don't think that's necessary. And Teller says he thinks that was the moment, not the congressional hearing later on, nothing else. He said he feels like that was the moment that he no longer could count on Oppenheimer's friendship, which that's really sad to me. So I have waxed poetic about Teller now for almost 13 minutes, so I'm gonna end it here, and I'm still researching things about General Groves. I'm not as comfortable with him yet, but that's all I have. Thanks for watching, and I really hope you guys can get out to see the show. It's going to be bloody amazing. God, it's such a good show. So thanks, guys.